With you guys today. I'm Bob Gump. I'm with a group called Heartland Democracy Project. Not as fancy as it sounds, just a group of concerned citizens up in Lafayette. We really just wanted to do our part to make sure that we weren't leaving voters on the sidelines, that voters knew that there were real issues that impacted their lives and that there are candidates running to represent them at the federal, state, county level. So we're excited that these candidates are running and we want to give them all the support we can. We have another forum going on next week. I'm sure some of you may have already voted. As you all know, primary elections are underway. I have not voted yet, and I haven't decided who I'm running for, so who I'm voting for. So I'm going to have to keep holding these forums until we figure out who I'm going to be voting for on May 5th. So let me tell you quickly the format, and then I do want to give a chance if there's other candidates here in the room to quickly identify themselves. Each candidate, we have a little random order. They know their order. Is going to have a 5-minute stump speech. Introduce themselves, why they're running, why you should vote for them. Then we do have 4 questions. They haven't seen these questions in advance. So this isn't really a full debate format, but they are going to answer the same question. So they each get up to 3 minutes to answer the question. And that's sort of going to be another random order so that they're not always going in the same order. There's also index cards on the tables. We'd like to collect questions from the audience. Obviously, we won't be able to ask all of them, but throughout the event, Erica, who's in the back, we'll remind people, and if you have questions, we'll collect them, bring them up to the front, because after the 4 longer form questions, we just basically do a rapid response. They get up to 1 minute, but they all have to answer the same question, so you get to hear their perspective on these questions. So it's a 30-second response, 40-second response. We'll do that for a few rounds, and then that will end the forum, and we hope that you guys can stay and continue to have the one-on-one conversations. You had a fair amount of that before. Honestly, that's probably the best way to get to know a candidate, is to talk to them face-to-face, ask your own questions directly. So if we don't get to your questions today, I do apologize for that, but hopefully you'll get to ask your questions directly after the forum. So I did want to, if there's anyone in the room who is on the ballot here in Morgan County who wants to quickly identify what you're running for and your name, please feel free to identify yourself. I don't think there is anyone in the room in that situation, but there might be. Okay, yes, please do.
Hi, I am Kiri Sichello. Hi, I am Kiri Sichello. My last name is pronounced Sit with a T silent, and like the instrument cello, Sichello. It's his fault, I need to buy a vowel. I am running for House District 60 to represent Morgan, Johnson, and Monroe counties. I am a firm believer that the government should work for us and should be ran by us. I do support a moratorium on data centers and small modular reactors, and I believe that we should have that local control should be part of us, and the government should be transparent in how we work, and I'm here to do that. I'm here to be a voice for rural people. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And then again, obviously, I don't know if you'll be here after the forum, but if there's opportunities to have discussion and questions.
Long haul.
Excellent, then please take the opportunity after the forum to ask questions. Also, is there anyone who's running for convention delegate? If you'd be, it's a lot of people. Right, so you're all just going to be talking to each other. I guess my point is, for those who didn't raise their hand, do recognize you have a lot of candidates for convention delegate, and if you haven't made your choices yet and you want to sort of know who to vote for, hunt them down, have conversation with them, make note of their name. That is an important race. I know in Tippecanoe County we have 80 candidates for 56 slots. And I mean, I don't want to say I saw it coming, but it sure felt like there was so much energy in talking to people, a lot of youthful energy. But it was amazing how many people were surprised, like, what? What's happened? I can't believe, I guess it hasn't happened in more than 20 years to have more candidates than delegate slots. So we're excited about that. But yeah, so now people have to vote for 56 names on the, it's a lot of work. All right, so I want to go ahead and get us started, give the candidates as much time as possible. They're each going to get up to 5 minutes to do their introduction. We did already draw random numbers, and Joe is going to be going first. Timekeeper's in the back. He'll give you a 1-minute warning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Can I get a show of hands? How many people do not know me here?
There you
One,
go.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, my name is Joe Mackey, and I have been active in this district for the better part of a decade. I have been a candidate, I have been a district chair. I have been an interested party, and I have traveled this district at all corners of it. And I have worked with counties working through difficulties, working through program development. I've worked special projects for our district. I've worked projects for the state party. We still have a lot of work to do. And I'm grateful for those of you who have raised your hands, who are running for a public office. I know that's hard to do here in Indiana for a Democrat, but we do it anyway because it's important that we, as a party, show up, stand up, and speak out. And at times, that can be rather daunting. I'd like to thank the Democracy Project for putting, I know others ask what about this opponent or that? I don't refer to them as my opponents, they're my brothers, we're Democrats, we're not Republicans. So put two Republicans in a competitive race, it's like putting two possums in a bag and watching them go at it. But I think we're reasonable people, and we seek reason in addressing the problems that we're facing. I think they're numerous. I think the rural communities are facing some really major problems. Budgeting problems, economic problems, healthcare problems, housing problems, education, healthcare, it's all on the table for the rural communities. And as a Democratic Party, this is really where we need to be. I tell people, we need a Roosevelt. And I don't mean Franklin, I mean Teddy. So we need a Roosevelt, someone that walks softly, carries a big stick. We're watching Republicans more and more show up at our events, engaging. I haven't seen that in this district in 20 years, and definitely in the last 10 years, I've never seen it. So we're understanding that Republicans are disgusted with their party. I call them the Dick Lugar Republicans. And I actually have one that referenced me. You remind me of Dick Lugar. And I said, well, thank you. I prefer to be viewed as a Birch Bayh Democrat. If you remember, Floyd Fithian came out of the 4th District. Birch Bayh and Floyd Fithian were a very powerful duo in Congress. And I think we can do this again. I think the opportunity to elect a Democrat in this cycle is as close as we've been in 30 years. The experts will tell you that statistically, we're 23 points down. But I don't believe that based on what I'm seeing. I think we might be 7 or 8. And I think as the summer develops, that gap is going to close. I think the Republicans are very concerned about this. I think they're concerned all over the district. And I think that Democrats are going to have a good year. So thank you for being here today. It's a beautiful day. And you're all inside listening to us talk. So thank you.
Hi, my name's John Whetstone. I'm a small business owner from Crawfordsville, where I own and operate a retro game store and collectibles store. For those of you who don't know what that is, if it's nerdy and worth a couple dollars, we buy and sell it all day. But I grew up in a small trailer park just outside of town, where both my parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. We were living this way in large part because we were drowning in medical debt, and a story that a lot of us know someone who is in a situation like that. I would wake up in the mornings, and my dad would come home from work at the factory. We'd have breakfast together, he would change clothes and go to his part-time job. This happened day in and day out, and the harder he worked, the sicker he became, and the sicker he became, the farther in debt our family became. And then we know that's not how it's supposed to work. Hard work is supposed to be rewarded in America. And in that trailer park, we had all kinds of people. We had retirees living on fixed income. We had people restarting their life because of bankruptcy, divorce, or getting out of a broken jail system. We had young families who couldn't afford a starter home, but they could afford to rent a 2-bedroom trailer built in 1960. And as a kid, I was quite angry. My dad had just died. My mom was working a ton of hours to hold the house together. And where we were living was not great. But I would look outside and see my neighbors living in similar situations. They were happy. And I wanted that happiness too. So I did the one thing a young me could think of. I went outside and talked to them. And what they told me was boiled down to 2 similar concepts. They believed if you worked hard and you were persistent, you were going to go anywhere in life, you were going to do anything. We know that as the American dream, and I still believe that today. Obviously, I'm here in front of y'all, and I have worked hard. I worked multiple jobs to help put my wife through school, and we were persistent. We saved every penny we could, and we lived in that same rundown trailer park for years until we could afford to open our own small business. But the American dream that I was sold and my old neighbors were sold and that you all were sold isn't working for working people anymore. Working hard's not enough and being persistent's not enough. The rules are being written by the very rich at the top and their political friends to keep themselves rich and in power. The same companies that own our media and our grocery stores and everything else in our life, they've helped design this on purpose. We can look at Dollar General, a lot of us know it as our local grocery store. They profit billions of dollars a year, their CEO makes millions, yet their employees make around $10 an hour, and they don't get full-time hours. They abuse the systems that they helped create by forcing these low wages on people and then accepting things like SNAP at no fault of the employees or the program, at the fault of the employer. So we're rewarding them for these low wages. And unfortunately, we helped create this. We had the chance to vote different people in power and we haven't. But because we helped create it, we can help fix it. By first removing big money from our politics. Next, we need to raise our minimum wage to $17.25 an hour and tie it to inflation. And then we need to tell the world that we're on board with healthcare being a human right, no longer a privilege, by moving to a Medicare for all system. And as we're here now, the last few weeks, we've spent $50 billion bombing Iran. And that just shows us the priorities our government has. It's not you and your well-being, it's the military-industrial complex and their rich friends. So, I don't know about you, but I'm working to put the American dream back to what I remember it and what it was sold to me. And we can do that together, so thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Drew Cox and I'm running for the 4th District, like all these gentlemen behind me. It's actually been a real privilege and a real pleasure to be on the road and to keep meeting with these guys, and we get along really well, and it's just really unfortunate that one person is going to win. But the good news is that we've all pledged to help whoever does win between the primary and the general, so that's good. A little bit about me. I've met a lot of you now. A lot of you are starting to look very familiar. But I grew up. I'm a lifelong Hoosier. I grew up in Spiceland, Indiana, and my mom she's in her 36th year of elementary education. My dad's a 4th generation farmer, and so that's where I grew up. I grew up playing football and baseball and farming, and I joined the Marine Corps after high school. I was in Afghanistan for one tour. My outgoing fitness report said that I went on 700 convoy operations and took 80-some flag officers over 2,000 miles, and I was awarded the Joint Service Achievement Medal. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I came home. I helped my dad put out the crop, and I went to IU and studied music. And I ultimately got a master's from IU and then a doctorate from Illinois. And so now I teach at Purdue, and I've been settled in Lafayette for a little while. The reason I got in the race, I got in this race at the time that I've kind of got this job, I've gotten things going, I've got a house finally for the first time, I've got this position at Purdue, and then Trump got elected. And the first thing that I couldn't stand to see anymore was watching ICE terrorize citizens. Watching ICE terrorize particularly blue communities and communities of color. And so people with the last name Cox and Mackey and Whetstone, we're probably not going to get targeted by ICE, and we need to do something about it. It's on us to do something. So that's the first thing that spurred me to run. But also, healthcare is unaffordable. Housing is unaffordable. My nephew was born with a heart condition in 2011 and was one of the youngest kids to have a heart transplant at Riley Children's Hospital. So that was in 2013. He had a transplant at the age of 2. And my sister and brother-in-law have had Medicaid for his entire life. Over the summer, when the Big Beautiful Bill passed, they were informed that they were no longer on Medicaid. My cousin has lost Medicaid. So I have lots of family members feeling the effects of this. You do too, probably. Meanwhile, the CEO of Eli Lilly makes $30 million a year. We need $1.5 trillion for defense spending. That's such a huge increase. If you pay attention to how much we spend on defense, it was half that not too long ago. Actually, just a few years ago, it would have been about $800 800 billion. And now the president's asking for 1.5 trillion. He's saying that we can't take care of our citizens. But I say the richest country in the world's primary objective should be to take care of its citizens. We have record profits all across the board. We don't have a problem with money. We just have a problem with where it's going. And the reason that this money is all shifting upwards is because we have career politicians that accept corporate money, and because of Citizens United in 2010 that has brought generational destruction to our society. Now every single race that you see is all going to be controlled by money. Everyone's asking me all the time, how are you going to raise money? And I have to think about this a lot, because the people that we're going up against are going to have a lot of money. But they're not going to be very popular, because the first thing that's going to happen, the first thing that I'm going to do if I win the primary is I'm going to have a town hall in every single county in this district. So I'm going to go to them. I'm going to invite the opposition to all the town halls. I'm going to be pressing for debates constantly. And I'm also going to step down from my role at Purdue to campaign full-time. So the semester ends in May, and I'm planning on not returning to Purdue University. I'm not here to lose. I'm here to win. And we're not going to accept any money from any corporate PACs or any ideological PACs that don't align with our views. So please visit drewcox.org and please chat with me after this is over. Thank you for coming today.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Paul McPherson. I did jump into this race a little bit late. February 2nd was my filing date. But why did I get into this race? And maybe a little bit about me. So I grew up in South Central Ohio. I grew up on a 210-acre cattle and crop farm. I had the opportunity to go to Berea College in Berea, Kentucky. Then I came up to Purdue for my grad school. Worked at Caterpillar for a short time. Then I returned back to Berea College in Berea, Kentucky to teach engineering technology, and ultimately wound up back up at Purdue teaching engineering technology there. I've been there since 2014. Most recently, I was hired to run our Bechtel Innovation Design Center, which is a 32,000 square foot manufacturing space. I have 140 employees, manage a multi-million-dollar budget there. And so then you may ask, well, why in the heck did I jump into this, right? And so I jumped into this. Politics has been something that's been on my mind for several years. I serve as the Warren County Chair of Democratic Party. I've been a Medina Township board member for 4 years now. And I've always wanted to move up, and I just thought, well, when is the right time? And personally, with the current administration, with so many things on the line, I think we're at a pivotal time right now where we need people like any of the four of us here to step into that leadership role and change what's happening in Washington. And so, me personally, I got in basically because of policy. So I hear things like Medicaid, Medicare for All, and being a budget-minded person, I sit there and go, well, in 2024, taxpayer money, there was $2 trillion spent on Medicaid, Medicare, and ACA subsidies. $2.5 trillion in 2024 was spent on that, and yet we still have a broken healthcare system. And so if you want to break those numbers down, that's $40 billion per state. Think about that, $40 billion per state, and we still have a problem, right? And so I'm all about healthcare for all. I'm more about, like I said, I'm all for healthcare for all. It's a matter of how do we take the money that's already being spent on these things and make it work for you, the taxpayer. Because you've got $40 billion being spent per state right now that is not providing good healthcare, right? And not affordable healthcare. And so I'm very much a budget guy. I think that our taxes are already high enough. You know, it's public knowledge what I make at Purdue. And when I went and did my taxes this year, all I could think was, man, I'm paying $20,000 in taxes this year, and Elon Musk is paying zero, right? That's a concern to me. And so why aren't my $20,000 and any of our money that's going into taxes being used for us in an appropriate way, the way we want them to be used? And so my pledge is if I get to Washington, I will dive deep into the budgetary side of things and find out why is the money not really working the way we want it to work for the U.S. taxpayer. Whether it's healthcare or education or military spending. When it comes to military spending, you know, people joke about, you know, that $3,000 screw. Well, I know people in the defense industry and different manufacturing sectors of the defense industry, And that $3,000 screw becomes a $3,000 screw because of all the subcontracting underneath it, right? And so, why do we keep letting the pocketbook of our country, U.S. Congress, continue to put money into places that it's not being spent appropriately, and we have people at the top that apparently don't know what a screw should cost, right? And so that's my pledge. I don't believe necessarily in cutting taxes for everyday Americans, but I definitely think that the upper 1% needs to pay their fair share as well. And then we have that pool of money to be able to make the tax dollars work for you and work effectively. So really, like I said, policy, money, that's what I look at from my side, and why I got into this is because I want our tax dollars to work for us, and the only way we can do that is people to get in there with a plan. So, thank you.
So for the next round, we have 4 questions. They will each address the same question. The order will change up a lot. They get up to 3 minutes. You don't have to use the whole 3 minutes. Timekeeper's in the back. But first, has anyone written questions on the index cards that they would like to submit? Erica's collecting some in the back. Collection. And again, there are index cards and pens on the table, and continue to do that. When we're done with these 4 questions, then we'll go to the index cards, and those will be a faster sort of 1-minute response type question. But so for the first question, so Joe, you're going to go first on this, and again, the order is going to keep changing. The first question, and up to 3 minutes. What changes do you recommend to protect elections and the right to vote?
Well, we got to kill the SAVE Act. As you know, Jim Baird is credited with authoring this. It's going to put 49 million women at risk of losing their privilege to go to the polls and vote. We watched our Secretary of State and our Attorney General turn over a decade's worth of voting data to the FBI. Our state, our data, you and me. And the result was they found over a decade 21 illegal votes. Now they said illegal, but they never said what these people, who they were, where they were. What we do know is there's no race in that decade that was swayed by 21 votes. So much ado over nothing. That's not where they plan to stop, it's just where they have started. Indiana has the lowest voter turnout in the country. That is by and large the result of a single party state. The Republicans find that when Democrats show up in large numbers and vote, Republicans lose races. In 2024, we had one of the worst voter turnouts in the country, and it hurt everybody. It hurts everyone. I say this, and I say it from the bottom of my heart. I know in many counties, there are a number of contested races on the Republican side. And Democrats in these counties with very few candidates opt to poll a Republican ballot and vote in a Republican primary. But that hurts us. It hurts the up-ticket races. And if I were to advise, want to know how to keep elections safe, vote blue. Vote blue in the primaries. I have 1 minute, so I'm going to say this. Leave your money at home. Stop sending it to Texas, to Georgia, to Florida, to Maine. They're all going to be fine. But we spend $4 to $5 million sending our money out of state to support candidates in other states, and that also hurts us. So, want to keep elections free and fair, we have to vote blue, because the Republicans don't want free or fair elections. They want you to stay home on election day.
So John, you're going to be next, then Drew, then Paul. Same question. What changes do you recommend to protect elections and the right to vote?
So I'm super against the SAVE Act. You heard me mention my mom a little bit. I watch her work 2 jobs and raise 2 of us while also hosting foreign exchange students. Couldn't imagine looking her in the eye and saying, hey mom, you're gonna have a hard time voting. Besides that, where I'm from, we're losing an education battle on voting. My county, there's a big push by our clerk and her supporters to remove voting machines in our county. It's a big fight, and it stems to a couple of things. One being education on how our elections work. Another one A lot of people have seen our government not work for them for so long, they don't trust the government, and what's more government than our elections? So we just need to focus on our government working for the people, giving them tangible things that are going to improve their lives, at the same time educating them why a voting machine isn't hackable. There's multiple things we can do in those senses.
Drew, your next fits question.
I think messaging is really important and letting people know how voting rights have worked. For instance, when were women first allowed to vote in the United States? 1920. Okay, that was the first time that women were guaranteed the right to vote. When were women of color guaranteed the right to vote? Not until the 1960s with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and then the Voting Rights Act of, I believe, 1965. We need to probably update the Voting Rights Act to include things like government-issued, state-issued IDs. So luckily right now, Indiana has got this Republican attempt to ban student IDs. The government is that's tied up in courts, but right now students can use their student IDs to vote. It's pretty well known that there was no real impetus for the Republican Party to ban student IDs. It's known that there is no student ID fraud. So messaging and constantly letting people know what is real is very important. And so we have this problem with young folks voting. And I think if we get out young folks to vote, we can overcome this problem. So young people voting in this election cycle is going to save things like the SAVE Act from passing. And I think hopefully the SAVE Act will die with the Senate before the general election. But our campaign has a very active goal of including the young folks. And when we involve the young folks in our campaign, and they're not just involved in the campaign, they're doing very important things in the campaign. My campaign manager is 22 years old. My communications director is 19. Other people are seeing that these young folks are doing this very important work. And then as a result of that, our volunteer group is now 40 people. I'm the third oldest in the group, okay? So that is an issue that most people don't want to take on. Most people I talk to about the young participation, and they say, we're dead last. Why would you even worry about that? It's like, well, maybe this isn't the campaign for you, okay? Because I'm all about getting 18 to 30-year-olds to vote, and also, you can be 18 years old and be on town council, get a paycheck. Like, I'm thinking about having some sort of competition in my Discord, be like, who's the first person in this group that's going to be on town council, So we just have to recognize the importance of young people, and we have to message, and we have to constantly let the world know, remind everyone that voting rights are pretty new for some people in this country.
Thank you. So Paul, some creative changes do you recommend to protect elections and the right to vote?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's get rid of the GOP that's trying to take us back 100 years, right? If elected in, things that I would support are, first of all, getting our government updated to the 21st century, right? With whether it's voter IDs, making sure that people have the access to vote, right? I'm a firm believer that the only way we really uptick the turnout for voting is to make election days holidays, right? Because I know a lot of people that can't take the day off to go vote. I know a lot of people that can't even take the day to go and early vote, right? And so that becomes a huge problem. And so I think that we need to do a lot more in ensuring people can go and vote. And we've got a GOP right now that they care about the half a dozen to a dozen or a little more fraudulent votes and could care less about the people that should be voting, right? That may not be able to be voting if the SAVE Act were to pass. And so, I think security is important, right? But again, I think that's part of getting to the 21st century. We can all go online and renew our driver's licenses online, yet we can't vote. But we seem to think that getting our driver's licenses and other documents online is safe, yet we can't vote online. So I think that there's a lot of things that we can start to look at to really secure elections, but also promote more people voting. So.
All right, for this next question, Drew, you'll go first and then Joe. So, several people already wrote these questions on the card, so the appropriate question. What actions would you take to hold the current administration accountable for its actions in this term?
I would be in support of impeachment for a variety of different reasons. First and foremost, we have not held previous entities responsible, and that has always come back to bite us, going all the way back to the Civil War. After the Civil War was over, we had a Reconstruction era where the North basically tried to make life more equitable for Black African Americans in the South. And so after a few years of Reconstruction, backroom deals between Northern and Southern politicians, the troops left the South, and now the Jim Crow era comes into place. And the Jim Crow era is all these state laws that basically discriminate against people of color in various ways. So that's why we have the Reconstruction leading to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, it's okay, but you're ultimately, what actions should you take to hold the current administration accountable? You started with impeachment.
Yeah. So I believe that we might have enough people with this blue wave to hold the Trump administration accountable. There are so many things that people don't realize. Impeachment for sure, but Trump's sons the family is being enriched by this war personally. The family is being enriched by this campaign in Iran. So impeachment is one thing. I don't really know beyond that.
Fine, well, we'll hear from the others. Thank
Okay.
you, Drew. Joe, you want to take a stab?
I think when the Democrats take over the majority in the House and the Senate, I'm concerned that we will get locked into let's impeach Donald Trump for the third time. And we have been burned by that twice. I do think that his cabinet needs to be impeached, and I would have no problems supporting that. One of the major issues with impeaching a president is the enormous amount of democratic opportunity we have to address the issues of the country. It will take an enormous amount of Democratic personnel, which means that congressional offices will have fewer assistants working within their office. I also believe that should we take over majority in both houses, you're going to find a complacent president. Why? Because Donald Trump loves to put his name on things, and he will sign the bills. We have to actually look at what happens after Donald Trump, because his time is limited, and we have to develop our plans to move beyond Donald Trump. He will be in the history books. I want to see us focus on the dinner table issues, which Democrats across the country are winning on today. Food affordability, housing affordability, education affordability, actual health care. Not just affordable health care, but actual accessible health care. There are a number of issues we have to deal with. We have to deal with the idea of data centers. Democrats in Congress are talking about putting a 5-year moratorium on them. I would support that. I think these are things that we can do. We need a water management plan. We haven't updated a water management plan in nearly 50 years, and yet we are watching water wars already occur. We're watching it in the Southwest. The city of Corpus Christi is a year away from running out of water. The whole city, and it's the largest liquid natural gas port in the country. And we have to figure out these water issues. So there's a lot of challenges coming our way, and I don't want to see us so tied up with Donald Trump that we miss the opportunity to deliver to the American people. So that's what I think needs to happen. I think Donald Trump will sign every bill we send him, and it should be our job to send him as many bills as it takes to keep him at the Resolute desk with the auto pen.
Paul, you're next.
Yeah, so I think, if a vote to impeach Donald Trump was brought before the House and the Senate, I would absolutely, definitely vote for that. But I do agree with Joe. There's a lot of man hours that go into that that don't allow us to focus on the other issues, right? I do believe that the cabinet and the DOJ and the FBI need to be held accountable, right? We need to return those to impartial units and divisions of the government and let them do their work, right? Not just answering to Donald Trump. We need to get the FBI and the FBI and the DOJ to actually be impartial and apply the law to everyone. So in terms of holding Trump accountable, I think that U.S. House of Representatives and Senate really need to grow a pair and get these people out of their offices so that we can return those two units to actually fight crime and apply the laws of the land across everybody equally.
So, I support impeachment of Trump and most of his cabinet for different things they've done. We've spoken on that. Something we haven't mentioned was we've given ICE $85 billion to police, and what they've done is stuff people in cages, kidnap kids, gun people down in the street, hide evidence, and lie. They're not trustworthy. We need to start by abolishing them. That's how we hold this administration accountable, getting rid of their private army. Then we can move on to things like impeaching different people. We also need to hold certain laws we've passed recently accountable, like the Epstein information. Why are we allowing them to hide this? We need to be holding all of our politicians accountable, no matter the party. They're breaking the law, they need to be held accountable.
All right, so for the third question, Paul, you'll go first, and then Drew. And so I am mixing in some of the questions you guys are adding to make sure I cover those concepts as well. So, what changes do you recommend to address immigration policy and border control, while also referencing your position on immigration and pathway to citizenship?
Yeah, so this kind of hits near and dear to me since I am an administrator at Purdue. I deal with international staff and students every day. And I see the impact that it has taken on staff and students, right? I think from the ICE perspective, we were giving $50,000 bonuses to people that signed up for ICE. Now, obviously, there were some strings attached to that, but we could have very easily used that $50,000, and Congress being the pocketbook for the country, could have used that $50,000 to hire people to go in and help those people become citizens rather than terrorizing neighborhoods, right? And much more effective, and we're building a positive community instead of a negative community at that point. And so I think from a budget perspective, that's what we should be looking at. We really need to invest money, again, in getting to the 21st century with these systems to ensure that people have a path to citizenship a lot faster, have their ability to get their visas approved a lot faster. A personal experience for me, have a colleague, we got their paperwork in well before the deadline. Yet 6 months later, they were still sitting there waiting as to know whether or not their visa was going to be updated. We had to pay a premium, and all of a sudden, magically, he got approved, right? And so why is it that our system is that ineffective, and we need to update that to ensure that we're able to get not only student visas, but worker visas approved in a timely manner? I think from a border patrol, we definitely need secure borders. Don't get me wrong. I think we need to do that. But I tell you what, building a wall keeps people out just as much as it keeps people in, right? And so we need to have an effective policy where we are screening people as they come in. But again, it takes an up-to-date government with systems that are up-to-date to be able to ensure that. So,
Drew, and then John will be after Drew. Changes to address immigration policy and border control and pathway to citizenship.
Yeah. We haven't had comprehensive immigration reform since the 1980s, so we need to have comprehensive immigration reform with everyone sitting at the table. And one thing that we've seen with immigration is wait times have doubled in the last 20 or 30 years. And a lot of people in Congress like that. A lot of people in Congress are very content with the wait times being doubled, with it being very bureaucratic, with it being very difficult. And so hopefully those are the people that are getting voted out. I have two friends that work at Purdue, they're from Ireland, and the way that they're treated when they come back and forth, they're non-citizens, but they live here. And the way they're treated when they come back and forth to go to Ireland on vacation is absolutely inhumane. This immigration issue is very much a moral issue. And I believe that ICE is probably beyond saving, and we should probably repeal the Patriot Act while we're at it. The Patriot Act is kind of a victory for terrorists, to be completely honest, if you want to think deeply about that situation. And it increased this mass surveillance, and it increased the scope of law enforcement. And I just think the current administration is making it harder for people to go through ports of asylum, and yet the United States, if you look at our history, is the cause for a lot of the reasons why people from South America and Central America have to come to our borders. So we have to think deeply about this problem and through a humane lens. And someone recently hit me to a book that I would like to encourage all of you to read. It's called The Open Veins of Latin America. And it talks about American policy, and it talks about all these immigrants coming here because of the things that we've done to their countries. So we have to streamline immigration. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We can't have a secure border and do it in a humane way.
John? Yeah, Joe, you're last.
Yeah, I'm gonna start again with saying abolish ICE. They've proven to not be trustworthy in their position. Past that, I agree with you both. We need to streamline our processes for people to become citizens and residents with their visas or things like that. Past that, we sent, again, $50 billion attacking Iran. We give billions of dollars for genocide in Gaza. We can instead be investing that in our neighbors to make sure we all have a good quality of life. We don't need to be spending it on bombs, because what that creates is things like refugees and people having just general terrible times in life. So they come here wanting the American dream. And my whole thing is believing in the American dream and trying to make it a reality for as many people as possible. So I don't want us to have a country that shuts out people who also believe in that same dream that I do.
I come from an immigrant family. My sister and I were born here. My brother Brendan was born in San Antonio 2 weeks after we arrived. We came in through the port of Galveston. My two oldest brothers, Kevin and Chris, volunteered and served in Vietnam. And they're both green card carriers to this day. My sister-in-law and her daughter and son-in-law just went to visit her grandson in Ireland. He's studying abroad. My brother Chris would not go because he was concerned the country wouldn't let him back in. My daughter-in-law Nazanin and her mother are Iranian by birth. And you can imagine the fear that they have because their name is Soleimani. And we are watching people with the name Soleimani being arrested and deported. Now, Nazanin and her mother are very much Americans. Nazanin was raised in Los Angeles. She's a Valley girl and wonderful business mind. And what happens to them if this bloodthirsty regime we have running our country deports them to Iran? They will be executed. Brutally, I might add. Although there's no really non-brutal way to execute someone, I don't want it to happen to a Valley girl from Los Angeles. So we have some real problems here in this country. We have never asked ourselves why a mother with 2 children will pack as much as she can carry on her back and walk 1,000 miles to come here. No one's asking that. We're in Israel, we're bombing Iran, we're bombing Lebanon. God only knows the things that we have done to the Palestinian people in Gaza. But we're not in Central America. We seem to turn a blind eye. Where's the United Nations? Why are these people fleeing to come here? Walls don't work. The Great Wall of China was not built to keep Mongols out. It was built to govern commerce. And that's why the gates were built into the wall. So we have a lot of work to do moving forward. The post-Trump era Democrats think about the country we want when Donald Trump is gone. and ask, what are the plans? What is your government doing, your Democratic representatives? What are they doing for the post-Trump era? Because that's where we need to be thinking. That's where we need to be working towards those goals. We need our Congress, our Democratic Congress, to make this known, so that we have an understanding of where our government is going to go.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Very good.
And in closing.
So for this fourth question, which is the last one, we're going to get more to the index cards, but again, I am sort of mixing them a little bit. We'll start with John and then have Paul, but are there any more index card questions we should be collecting right now? I've got quite a few and I'm trying to sort through them. If you have any others. Yeah. Thank you. I'll take it. All right. So the fourth question, what did I say? Start with John? Yep. Start with John. How will you approach supporting rural communities and rural infrastructure? 3 minutes. Up to.
So I was just talking to someone earlier. I believe internet has come to the point where it's a utility that we all require. So we need to make sure we're expanding our internet infrastructure to reach rural communities. Past that, I come from a rural community, and we're fortunate enough that we recently got some rural transit. It's nothing fancy, it's a couple of vans, and they'll take people to doctor's appointments around town, things that they need. This program's opened my eyes for how important it is. Because even though we got this recently, there's still a gap. There's not enough cars and buses to help. I'm personally driving people to, from Montgomery County up to Lafayette because they need to get doctor's appointments that are specialized that our area doesn't cover. And we can be investing in our rural healthcare and our healthcare in general, but a big thing is getting to those appointments. So we need to be investing in things like rural transit to help people get to their appointments, get to their grocery stores, things like that. So thank you.
Paul, you're next. Yes.
So yeah, again, I'm going to put my business monetary hat on, right? So for almost a decade and a half now, the government, your tax dollars, have been spent on trying to invest in the last mile for rural internet. And yet, companies haven't followed through. They take the money, they develop a plan, but they never actually implement it. I'm a victim of that. My parents in Ohio are a victim of that. High-speed internet is not available where I live in rural Indiana in Warren County. It's not. And yet, you as taxpayers, we as taxpayers, have already spent the money that is trying to get that there, and the companies just take it and develop a plan but never execute. So I think that's one area that we definitely need to build on. The other is block grants, making sure that the federal budget is developed in such a way that block grants are being used and they're being used appropriately in the rural communities. It's our job, whoever wins, is to go and make sure that that money is set aside and then come back to the communities and say, hey, did you know that you and the community leaders, the business leaders can work together to apply for these block grants and make sure that the state is spending that money appropriately that is allocated down to the state. And so that can help with infrastructure on sanitation systems, roads, building out of schools. There's block grant parks. Those things are important, and we need to make sure that they exist and that rural communities in 4th District know that they exist and that we are working together with you guys to make sure that those are applied and applied for. That's the biggest thing, right? Lack of people applying for them, but apply for them and try to push through to see that come to our district. So.
Thank you, Paul. We're going to be Joe and then Drew last.
Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so
for me,
what
please?
would you do to support rural infrastructure and rural development to rural communities?
Well, I believe I've mentioned water, but let's talk healthcare for a minute. Healthcare in the rural communities is a dumpster fire. Our infant mortality rate here in Indiana is the 7th highest in the country. And overwhelmingly, the majority of those babies that are dying in rural communities. Our maternal mortality rate here in the state of Indiana is the 3rd highest in the country. And again, overwhelmingly, the women who are dying in rural communities. So we have a real problem where this is concerned. We're 100,000 healthcare specialists away from being able to adequately treat the American people, which means that healthcare is growing farther and farther away as healthcare providers consolidate their organizations. We have a great many problems out here. Education. We need to revive Title I and pay rural teachers what they're worth. Must happen. We need to fund our schools. We need to see to it that there is equity in education. In Lafayette, we have a learning center where kids can go after school and engage in interests beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic. But we don't have that in our rural communities. I'm told, well, it's a magnet opportunity, and kids from Montgomery County and Warren County can come to Lafayette. And I said, if you thought that was reasonable, you would have built it in Montgomery County or in Warren County, and kids from Lafayette could drive there. So we understand the disparity that's going on between urban and rural. I have a very clear idea of that. And it is, what can we do to help rural communities? Well, at this point, anything we do is good. We just need to make sure that what we're doing actually reaches rural communities. Agriculture, $35 billion industry. Does that affect rural communities? You bet it does. For every farmer, there are 8 to 12 farm-adjacent jobs that are at risk of being lost. We need to grow more food. We need to revive USAID, which was a good program that gave small farmers a piece of that $2 billion pie. There is so much to do for our rural communities, and they are being ignored by the very party that's governing them. Democrats can't make that mistake.
Rural infrastructure and supporting our rural communities.
Okay. Rural infrastructure. As far as healthcare goes, we need to look at mobile integrated health. White County is an example of someone that as a county that started that. Joe actually told me about Nevada as a state. So we need to look at that in rural areas because rural access is only decreasing. As far as infrastructure, not related to healthcare, in 2021 we passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and that was $1.2 trillion allocated over 5 years. So again, all these things are coming back to just basic morals and basic principles. You have a president that says, we want 1.5 trillion for defense. Well, when you look at 1.2 trillion for a 5-year infrastructure plan, it's like, why don't you multiply that infrastructure plan by 5 and actually fix all the roads? How many bridges are down in all these counties? How many bridges need repair? I know multiple in Tippecanoe County. You know, the Wabash, it's not an easy river to build a bridge across. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act also increased rural internet access. So roads, infrastructure, internet access, and also I'm not sure that I agree with everything in the Green New Deal, but we need to take a look at something like what AOC has proposed with the Green New Deal. That provides a lot of rural jobs, renewable energy, but also that raises the standards for water consumption, for the cleanliness of water and environmental standards, which we also desperately need because we are in the most polluted state in the union, in case you didn't know. In addition to our poor voting record, we're also as polluted as it gets. So something like a Green New Deal that not only provides renewable energy jobs, but also increases the standard for water and air quality. We have so much we can do if we elect the right people. If we elect grassroots candidates, we can have all these things that we want.
I'm actually not going to take any more index cards. We probably won't even be able to get to all of these. So these will just keep you under a minute. You can take whatever time you need, but keep them short. And some of these might need more discussion than a minute will allow. And so hopefully whoever asked the question can come meet you afterwards if they want to get a fuller answer. But let's just try a few rounds of these. And again, I'm going to keep moving you guys in a mixed order. I'll try to give you a head up. So for this first question, we're going to start with Joe and then go to John. Tell us about your position on the wars in Gaza, Iran, and the Ukraine, and what you would do if elected.
I think I've stated where I think the horrors we're perpetrating are going on. I just said it. We have a real problem because it's not just the evils that we're perpetrating against those perceived to be our enemies. It's also the evils that we're perpetrating against those who have historically been our friends, our neighbors, our trading partners. We are becoming more isolated, and in doing so, we are losing our position in the global market. We're losing our position in the diplomatic areas, and we're becoming more and more isolated. America First was never meant to be America alone. We cannot be the nation we want to be on our own. We need everybody on board. I don't like the defense spending. Drew's mentioned that.
Thank you, Joe.
He's
Good
gone up
answer.
to 1.5 trillion,
Joe.
too much.
Thank you, Joe. John?
1 minute.
So, as a small business owner, if I'm not pulling up to my deals, I'm gonna get run out of town. So we need to be holding up to our deals, like our protection of Ukraine. We need to keep helping them. We've made that obligation. But at the same time, our bombs shouldn't be going to committing genocide in Gaza. They shouldn't be going to attacking a country and damaging our economy and the world economy like Iran. And it shouldn't be going to bullying our friends in NATO, threatening Greenland, and threatening to pull out of NATO because we couldn't bully them into a war that we started. So I want to hold up to our deals and also stop giving bombs to people who aren't going to use them appropriately and commit genocide with them.
Thank you, sir. Drew, you're next, and probably the last one. The wars in Gaza, Iran, Ukraine, and what you could do in women?
So we're not taking any money from AIPAC, but also they're probably not ever going to offer me any because I openly say that Israel is committing genocide against Gaza. I would also say no more money to Israel, period. Nothing for anything. In terms of Ukraine, I think that we hopefully will be back in with a great connection with our next administration. I think that the people of NATO right now are looking at us and saying, when will this end? Hopefully someone else comes in and NATO is strong again and US is playing a strong leadership role. So I do support funding for defense, for Ukraine's defense. I think it's very important to, because I think Vladimir Putin is an evil dictator and I don't think that you can really predict. I don't think the man has a soul and I don't know what his goals are with the rest of Europe. Thank God that Ukraine has been holding as strong as it has. I was in Afghanistan and I remember...
I know, you're ready. It's a good punchline. 1 minute stuff, Paul.
Some of these are very hard for 1 minute.
I know.
Yeah, so I think with Gaza and Iran, there's been so many war crimes committed by our government that hasn't been held accountable that it's just insane, right? The world needs to hold our leadership in our country accountable for the genocide in Gaza, for the bombing in Iran that was unnecessary. But let's talk a minute about Ukraine. I think we've let that war go on way too long. Right? I think that the amount of funding that we've provided and strategic initiatives that we've done for Ukraine have not been enough. I think we need to get this war to come to an end, and the only way we're going to do that is if we and all the other NATO allies get behind Ukraine 100% and put an end to it. So.
All right. For the next question, we'll start with Drew and then go to Joe. All right. Again, I know 1 minute's tough, guys, but we like to. There's a lot of questions here, and it gives us a chance to hear your thoughts on a range of issues. So, how do you approach convincing a longtime Republican voter to vote for you? Start with Drew.
I've got a pretty good start for one. Most of my family is pretty red. Even the ones that are Trump voters support me, and that's basically because they know me. They know that I'm serious. And I'm also, I'm a veteran, I grew up farming, I kind of have this identity piece that really helps out with relating to Republicans. So, like I said, our goal, in addition to being a military veteran, and the only military veteran running for this race on the Democrat side, our goal of having a town hall in every county is going to be very important. We have to get out to all these counties and we have to talk to all these people individually. And so, like I said before, I'm going to step down from Purdue. I'm going to hit the ground running in May, and it's going to be a town hall in all 16 counties. And it's going to be a constant 24/7 battle. Thank you. 1 minute.
It's a great question. We have 3 Republicans working on my campaign right now. One of them, Lewis Wheeler in Clinton County, was Suzanne Crouch's 4th District campaign chair. Another one, I met recently over in Roosevelt in Howard County, who wrote me a nice email, who said, you know, I find that maybe I don't agree on all of the end points, but I really do like the way that you present yourself. I think you and I are in alignment in that respect, and I want to work for your campaign. We had another one up in Rensselaer who came to a house party, sat and listened to what I had to say, got up, handed me $50 and said, you're the first Democrat in my life I'm going to vote for. We need to talk to Republicans, and they are interested in hearing what we have to say if we talk about the dinner table issues, because those are issues that affect all of us, including Republicans.
Thank you, Joe.
Healthcare is a problem that affects all of us.
Thank you. Paul and then John last.
Yeah, I think Joe said it. Get out and talk to them, right? So one of the people that have donated to my campaign, they called me up and said, Paul, I need you to come with me for an afternoon, and it's going to be an uncomfortable afternoon. And I said, well, why is that? And he goes, well, I'm going to introduce you to some business owners that are as close to MAGA as they can get without being MAGA. And I said, well, this will be interesting. So we jumped in a car, we headed out to a few businesses, a couple seed companies, a couple grain elevators, sat down around the table, and all of a sudden I changed their mind. Why? Because I can talk numbers, I can talk business, I can talk strategy. And so it's any of us that gets through the primary, it's all about just going out and talking to them and letting them know that we are there, we're ready to talk common sense issues. We have a plan, we want to get to Washington and help them just as much as we want to help everybody. I'm out knocking on doors. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I'm gonna knock on your door and meet you, because if I'm elected, I truly believe that I represent everybody and I want them to know me, so.
So where I grew up, most of my neighbors I just mentioned earlier, they flew Trump flags or Trump adjacent flags in the pre-Trump times. Talking to Republicans and people on the right, I can do that. It's things I did growing up every day, and it's just about finding what's relatable. And when I'm out talking to people, what's relatable is they know it's not a left and right issue. We have an up and down issue. That's why we need to raise wages, we need to fix our health care. Talking about those issues, they can get behind, and they do get behind it. It's why a good chunk of my staff is Republican, a good chunk is Libertarian, just as well as I have Socialists and Democrats. It's about getting to the issues that impact all their lives and talking about those.
So for this third question, it's a lot to do in 1 minute, but we had multiple cards that sort of made reference to this. So starting with Paul and then followed by Drew. Tell us your position on alternative energy sources such as solar, wind, and nuclear. And it came up several cards.
So, as somebody that studied alternative energy as part of my grad school, I do believe that solar and wind and some nuclear are important. But how we implement it is also important, right? So just down the road from where I live, solar company bought a whole bunch of land, then Tippecanoe County said, nope, we don't want that solar farm to show up. And while I support solar, I don't necessarily support using farmland for solar. I believe that we have enough built environment already that doesn't integrate solar into the rooftops, right? And so start there. Then I'm also in favor of using farmland for solar as long as there's some sort of a policy where that farm or that land can also be used for some sort of agricultural use, whether it's running cattle, running sheep, running goats, something agricultural needs to be remaining on that land. When it comes to wind, I'm definitely in favor of wind. We've seen it successful up in the northern part of the district. In terms of nuclear, that we get back into the water issue.
Thank you, Paul. Drew?
I mentioned the Green New Deal. We need to have, we need to be promoting renewable. We need to incentivize renewable. We need to get rid of fossil fuel subsidies, period. And if someone has a reason as to why we should have fossil fuel subsidies, please tell me afterwards. We have over 20 counties, I think, in Indiana that have a moratorium on renewables. So you cannot, which is not very capitalist, by the way, you cannot have renewable energy in counties that you can have coal ash ponds. So we need to, so this current administration is basically has a war on renewables, and we need to completely change the tide, and we need to be pushing renewables. We need to incentivize businesses to put solar on their rooftops, and we need to get rid of fossil fuels, and we need to have healthier outcomes for everyone, and we'll have more energy independence. Also, we're looking at, our campaign's looking at new nuclear. We're kind of taking feedback from the district on that. What's one issue of many issues that we say, okay, what do you, the
Thank
fourth
you,
district say about this?
Thank you, Jerry. All right, John, and then Joe last.
So I agree a lot with Paul and what he said. So instead of restating it, I'm going to talk about my perception on the issue. As Democrats and as people who support renewable energy, we lose on the messaging quite hard on it. A large part of it is people, they don't understand. What they do understand is that was once my great-grandfather's farm and now it's a solar panel. They don't like that. We need to get into our communities, be present and educate. And that's how we're going to eventually get off of fossil fuels.
Next week, I'm going to take a tour of an ethanol plant up in White County in Monticello. And we're talking about biofuels. Why biofuels? Well, they have a smaller carbon footprint than petroleum-based products. They're manufactured with corn and soybeans. So we can produce biodiesel at half the cost of petroleum-based diesel. We can produce ethanol at half the cost of gasoline. These are energy resources that essentially are renewable. They also bail out our farmers who are losing 60% of their row crop market. I think this is important. I think it's very important that Democrats, mostly urban, are only too happy to say we need more windmills and we need more solar panels, and let's put them out in Warren County or Fountain County or down here in Morgan. And I think it's a disservice to these counties that we're not listening to them. So thank you, biofuels.
For this fourth question, we'll start with John and then go to Paul. People are clever, they write multiple questions in one. So in your 1 minute, will you address your thoughts, particularly on the role of government in regulating data centers and AI? And I think the question, the way it was, is the impact of data centers on ratepayers and the environment, but also AI's impact on consumers.
Okay.
They go together.
Okay, I'll try to do that in a minute. So as we've seen, I've yet to meet people who are pro data center. You go to any community, they're against it. I guess the farmers who are selling the land, they're usually pro data center, but that's about all I notice. Recently, there's been legislation that's been proposed and passed to try to limit the state's rights to regulate data centers. We need to stop that. We do need to go to a moratorium until we can figure out what this is doing to our environment, what it's doing to our water, things like that. What was the other question I don't run into?
Well, to the extent that the role of AI, because they
AI.
use these data centers and the impact on consumers.
Yeah, so generative AI, I don't think we need it. It's not art. It's not creating anything for us. It's things we shouldn't support, so I do think we need to regulate it. How we regulate it, I'm not sure at the moment. But.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, so a report was just recently released in the last couple days that the Amazon data center that's coming into Indiana, or one of the Amazon data centers that's coming into Indiana, was going to use 300 million gallons of water a year and 2.2 gigawatts of electricity. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. And quite frankly, at the federal level, we need to create regulations that make sure that these companies that are wanting to put these data centers in disclose all of that before they start breaking ground on that. That they can't sign NDAs with government officials to hide all of that information. That's going to ultimately cost you guys in the increase of the grid capabilities, right? And so from the regulatory standpoint, I think we really need to have regulations that protect our water, protect our land. From the development, especially the development of facilities that are going to take the resources, the natural resources that we depend on to live, right? And so I think at the federal level, we set the base work and then make sure that the states are following that.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Joe and then Joe.
Data centers are a fiasco. AI is horrifying. We can't control AI. We're watching everything go on now. The founder of AI is telling us he's frightened. Data centers have negative impact on Hoosiers and zero positive impact. We need to put a moratorium on this until we can get a handle on AI itself. Secondly, they're gonna put a data center right here in Monrovia. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Monrovia doesn't have enough water to grow, but they're going to pump water into Monrovia for a data center. Do you see this as an aggressive act on our rural communities? Because it's important that someone in Lafayette understand what's happening here. In your county, in Monrovia, Cary is on the ballot for this. So say no.
Thank you, Joe.
Fight back.
Andrew.
Talk a lot about regulating them. We need to regulate data centers. We need to make them work for us. And if they don't work for us, they can't come into our communities. One thing though that we can do is our campaign's talking about a consumer bill of rights. And I'm talking about as far as energy consumption. As in, your energy consumption costs cannot go higher than such and such amount. And that is because of what we're, as we all know now, data centers are passing on their massive electricity costs to all of us. They're consuming a lot of water. So yes, we do need to regulate them, but we could also do something for people and say that the government will now have to figure out where to come up with this money, because us as consumers, we should not be paying any more than this. We should have a fixed level of utility bills.
So I'm looking at the clock. We have a lot more questions I know I'm not really going to be able to get to. So I'm going to go ahead and call an end to the forum here with the hope that actually, to the extent that you had questions that didn't get addressed, you can engage in one-on-one conversations. Hopefully you guys don't have to run off. Yes, Joe?
Can we provide those attending a means of looking at us? Where do they find us on the internet? Where do they find our websites?
Well, you
Closing
certainly have,
statement?
I mean,
Oh,
you
okay.
certainly have your materials here, and my hope is that people will come get your materials. Do you want to make a closing statement? I mean, at your request for it.
Do you want to make one, John?
I love talking.
Just
I think
keep
we
it, keep it short, and I'm just gonna go in geography this time. Paul, you go first. So keep it short though, please.
Yeah, so you can find out more about me at votemcpherson.com. I've got several videos up there on my stance on various issues. You know, if you're looking for somebody that's very budget-minded, very industry-minded, and wants to tackle this, some of our social and economic issues from an engineering perspective, that would be me.
So, thank you, Paul.
So the website is drewcox.org, so please visit that and see how you can learn more. As the only military veteran in this race, like I said before, I'm willing to step down from Purdue to campaign full-time. I did not come here to lose. I'm coming here to support everyday folks and to turn this district blue for the first time since the 1990s.
So I'm Joe Mackey. You can find me at joeforhoosiers.org. You will find positions on issues I am running on. I encourage you to go and look at healthcare, look at mobile healthcare, see what the state of Nevada is doing, understand how the issues I'm running on relate to you here in Morgan County and around the district. Thank you.
You can visit whetstoneforcongress.com to learn a little bit more about my platform. In summary, it's all about affordability and making sure we have a good quality of life and the American dream can be realized in our lifetime. If you have more pressing questions, I know we couldn't get to them all. I am doing a virtual town hall with Progressive Indiana Network. Right after this, I'm going to be doing it in the car on the way home. So feel free to jump in there, ask me questions. If you couldn't get yours answered, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Good suggestion. So I just want to thank you all for joining today. Clearly, you guys are very engaged and motivated. Some of you have probably already voted, but if you haven't, I hope this has been helpful in helping you decide who to vote. But the real work happens after the primary. As they've all said, one of these guys are going to win, and we're going to get on board and we're going to support, carry them to November. So your ability to support them with your time, canvassing, with your contributions and donations, honestly, early money makes a big difference in helping them get a campaign going. I don't think it's going to take the most money to win, but it is going to take contributions and efforts from the community and supporting, talking to your neighbors and getting the word out. So thank you guys all for running. Look forward to seeing the winner after the primary and getting behind all of you. And thank you again all for coming on this beautiful day. I hope there's still some beautiful weather to enjoy, but before you leave, again, talk to these candidates, get their campaign material, and have your questions addressed. So thank you all.